it's so true with communities. When you're working in a community, when you're working for a community, when you're creating your own community, you've got to know what your truth is in that moment and know that your truth will be tested in the development of that community. And that's part of creating community and communicating in community, is understanding that it's not all, it is about that grand vision that you and others may join together to create, but it's also about your own development and the testing of your truth and your values.
Yes.
And when you can trust that that may lead you to places that you had no idea where you were going to go, then you're open to all of the gifts that that journey will bring you.
And what a beautiful point. Because it isn't only communicating out to the community.
That's right.
Right? So communication is two ways.
Absolutely. It's the first thing is not outward. No. The first part is understanding what your desire is for either being a part of that community or the reason for creating that community. And you do have to communicate that outward to discover who's with you on this community journey, because it is a journey.
Yes.
But first, you have to know that what you're communicating is fully you, as much as you can know yourself in that moment.
Such a great point. So if you are communicating, and I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but if you're building a community and you have your message, your vision, your values as refined as you can, because they will always change, as you pointed out, as you build the community, and you're putting it out there, and you're not finding a community that will gather around that message, and you start to inevitably feel that, okay, I'm shouting out into a black hole. What advice can you give someone to say, like, maybe it's not the intent, maybe it's the communication of the intent? How can someone refine or continue to build upon the communication of the intent? Because sometimes it's just how we're presenting something, not what we're presenting, I have found. And so if we tailor or we refine, have you ever found that to be the case? And do you have any tips for someone who might be going up against that wall?
In my experience, I would say that you have more to learn about yourself and to take a look at what you might be grasping for as you're speaking out into the world and nobody's responding back. And I would pay attention if there's kind of an underlying grasping or fear of being alone, and look at that first, and to find out what that means for you, and to see if there isn't more in your solitary journey that needs to happen. Because what's happening in a solitary journey of you and your soul and your spirit and that which guides you, that's first community. And if there's nobody attaching to that, it could be a protection for you. So first look at that. And how are your boundaries? How are your boundaries in the spirit realm? Are in your own mind, in your own life? And do those boundaries need to be strengthened in your self-care habits? So I would look at that first before I did any more communicating outward. And because if you keep pushing something when nothing's coming back, you might not enjoy what eventually connects. But so that first.
Love it.
Yeah. And then, the second thing is are you listening to the people that you're attempting to connect with? Are you really even hearing them? Are you using a language that they can understand, because changing our language doesn't change us. And some people have a real problem with language, and they refuse to change their languaging to connect with people, when really, if you attach your identity to language, then you're going to have a very hard time hearing what the people in community are really saying and what they're really needing. You've got to get beyond the language and develop an understanding of the people to determine if this is where you want to be and these are the people you want to connect with. So first, to internal listening. Secondly, the active listening for those that you're attempting to connect with. Because if you're attempting to push an agenda of some kind, even though it's a high vibrational, wonderful, loving agenda, I would say that you probably need to look at that first and see if that's what people are really wanting.